Thank you for joining us again. Today we are doing part 2 of the devotional on the Good Samaritan in Luke 10, verses 25 to 37. In the last devotional, we talked about the importance of remembering our salvation story, remembering the pain from which we've been rescued. That will allow us to be more compassionate. We talked about helping others to discover life of God, that our call is to turn the hearts of others back to God. And third of all, we talked about the need to be emotionally present with those who are struggling around us, and that will create space for us to be compassionate. The fourth point I see here is that compassionate Christ followers never forget to risk their reputation and their comfort zone to love people back to life. In verse 34, the Word of God tells us, "So he went to him, bandaged his wounds, poured on oil and wine, and set him on his own animal, led him to an inn, and took care of him." Verse 34 is referring to the Good Samaritan, taking care of the man on the side of the road. You know what that says? That the Samaritan was a half-breed. The very fact that Jesus used a Samaritan in the story was probably greatly offensive to the religious lawyer. The lawyer was a man who knew his birthright as a Jew, but a Samaritan wasn't completely in, he wasn't completely out, he was a half-breed. So there really wasn't much respect for the Samaritans by the Jewish community. Jesus said, a certain Samaritan. In other words, he was saying, this is someone that you wouldn't expect to actually care. Not just care, but he risked his reputation. The Samaritan took out his oil, took out his wine, and got off his animal. And he said to himself, if I'm going to do something here, I'm going to have to take risk. We don't know where he was going. It was obviously a journey of somewhere. But he risked his schedule and his time to help someone in need. Risk is a form of love. It says, I love you. It says, I care about you. How many times have you come to church and you leave right away? I encourage you to risk your schedule by greeting others that you haven't met yet, or welcoming a newcomer, or being vulnerable and sharing your testimony to others that may seem discouraged. Lastly, we see that the compassionate Christ followers never forget to use their resources to restore others back to life. We see this in verse 35, and how the Samaritan uses his resources to care for the downtrodden man. So the next day when he departed, he took out 2 denarii and gave it to the innkeeper and said, take care of him, and whatever more you spend, when I come again, I will repay you. And that's really cool. The Samaritan, he shows up with a guy on his horse. He gets off, and he goes to the hotel and says, I need you, innkeeper, to take care of this man and all of his needs. Whatever you have to pay extra, please put it on my tab, because I'm coming back to repay you. I've read this passage a number of times, and I've been convinced that it's necessary to go from head knowledge to heart experience. Why? Because Jesus is essentially saying to us, I am the Good Samaritan. Jesus is the Good Samaritan in this passage. The person that I put on that horse was you, Jesus is saying. When I took you into church, the inn is the church, and the innkeeper is like the pastor. It's going to cost you to take care of people that I'm rescuing. It's going to cost you to take care of people that I bring to church. So whatever it takes to rescue people who are far from me, whatever it takes to restore marriages, to help youth in their troubles, spend your time, invest in it, because when I come back, and I am coming back soon, Jesus says, I will repay you. I will repay you for every single penny. So I thank you, Christ Church, for the last 11 years. I've seen how you've been compassionate towards those in our community. Thank you for standing in the gap for compassion and justice. These past 11 years that I've been on staff, I've seen your generosity help provide adequate transportation to well over 100 clients through our CARS ministry. And transportation provides dignity and livelihood for others. You've packed over 2.5 million meals to undernourished children around the world through Feed My Starving Children. You've taken the time to jump on 23 different bus tours in the neighborhood to find service opportunities. You fed thousands of homeless clients in need of shelter. You've walked alongside people offering legal aid at the Justice Center. Nearly 3,000 winter coats and accessories have been provided to international students at Trinity over the last 11 years. Hundreds of angel tree adoptions for children of inmates have happened, providing gifts to these children that otherwise wouldn't have gifts through the Lake County Jail. And nearly 5,000 shoeboxes given out to children around the world through Operation Christmas Child. Tens of thousands of hours have gone into tutoring in local schools. You have been compassionate, risking your time, even your reputation perhaps. You've offered to be emotionally available to others. And nearly 20 Matthew homes have been offered to families in North Chicago. You've spent the time to renovate and rebuild these homes, and in doing so, rebuild families and the community. Dozens of high school FCA, Fellowship of Christian Athlete huddles, have been developed at various schools throughout Lake County. You have made a colossal difference in the lives of others these years, and I commend you for that. For those of you who are on the sidelines, I want you to re-engage your heart. I want you to re-engage your mind. Some of you have been here for a long while, and God needs you to let your heart get recycled again, only by the grace of God, so that we can be compassionate towards others. There's more for you to do, more for you to be, more hearts to be turned, and more lives to be changed for the glory of God. Thank you, Christ Church.